You read it and it is like AI slop. It's total gobbledygook. They claim that they're going to make them from, more use of artificial intelligence, from automating HR functions, something called the Defence Operating Model. It really is very poor on detail. And they also claim they're going to reduce the cost of the civil service by, some inordinate amount.
It's 10%. It's huge. And
I've been doing this job for so long, and they all commit to cutting the size of the civil service, and they all make it bigger. And
Labour's Defence Minister Luke Pollard told us it wasn't unusual to set out proposals that weren't fully funded. He was responding to the news that Sir Keir Starmer's defence investment plan had a near £5 billion hole in its funding. Is it not unusual? Should it be? Let's talk to Steven Swinford, the political editor of The Times. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
So Luke Pollard said, essentially, nothing to see here. This is how everyone does it. It's totally fine. Is he right?
No, he's totally wrong. Honestly, this defence spending plan needs to be built on sand. It's an utterly extraordinary document. So we were reading through it yesterday, and we got to, how will it fund it? A little annex to the document in the small print. And when you got to line 10, it said £4.7 billion to be decided at the next budget. And that is a highly unusual thing. Rachel Reeves has made her reputation on delivering fully funded pledges. What we have here is an unfunded pledge, a third of the uplift in defence spending. And they're saying, well, look, it's not that much, it's relatively straightforward to get the money. I tell you what, they had to, it took blood and guts to get to the 10.3 billion that they have raised from other departments, never mind this putative 4.7 billion that is now Andy Burnham's problem. And the problem is that's just the beginning. Because what it doesn't have in it is any target for hitting 3% or 3.5%. And that is actually an enormous thwack to come in the next kind of 2030 to 35 of an additional £25 billion worth of spending. So forget your 15, there is much worse to come. And then on top of that, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm ranting, I am a bit, there are what I would call magic efficiencies at the heart of this. So at the heart, underpinning the whole budget, is a claim that they will make £10 billion worth of saving, £10.7 billion worth of efficiency savings. And you read it and it is like AI slop. It's total gobbledygook. They claim that they're going to make them from, more use of artificial intelligence, from automating HR functions, something called the Defence Operating Model. It really is very poor on detail. And they also claim they're going to reduce the cost of the civil service by, some inordinate amount.
It's 10%. It's huge. And
I've been doing this job for so long, and they all commit to cutting the size of the civil service, and they all make it bigger. And Dame Meg Hillier, who was magnificent in the Commons yesterday, she is the chairwoman of the Public Administration Committee. And she's seen this come and go. She's a Labour MP. And she was just like, we have seen a succession of hugely optimistic assumptions that never come to pass on defence efficiencies. Is this going to be one of them? And obviously the answer to that is they're not going to make these savings. So every pound they don't make of that 10.7 billion is extra defence money. So I've got to say, for a government that has prided itself on fully funded pledges that accused the Tories of leaving black holes, this will take some explaining.
Yeah, I think, but Steve, for me, one of the things that I wonder about is if Keir Starmer wasn't leaving office in the next couple of weeks, is there any way he could credibly get away with saying what he said on the defence investment plan?
No, I think it's very challenging. And look, even if he was, let's say he was going to continue for his 10-year term as he'd originally said that he would have done, and we were in this kind of era in which politics trod more lightly in all our lives, even then, we would have all been asking huge questions about it. The immediate splash today would have been Rachel Reeves will have to find £4.7 billion worth of tax cuts or tax rises or spending cuts. So even on their own terms, it is a problem. And as much as they want to spin it, and this is before, Kate, we get to other issues, because there are loads of unexploded bombs here. Another one, which is a huge issue, is military housing. Now, the state of military housing, just so our listeners are aware, is appalling. It is servicemen and women, the families of servicemen and women are living in dilapidated, damp-ridden, really old, not fit-for-purpose housing. And some of it is absolutely disgusting. I've seen it. It's really bad. There is a big modernisation programme, which is $9 billion over 10 years. And what they have quietly announced, it's not actually in the plan, but they are confirming it on background, is that the bulk of that spending, $6 billion of it, will now be in the next Parliament. So they have delayed a load of spending on military homes.
Oh, he confirmed it to us this morning. But we had to drag it out, but Luke Pollard confirmed this morning that money will be back-ended now. And his justification basically was, we've got stuff that's more important.
And that is fine, but what they didn't do was put it in the document in black and white, and they weren't transparent about it yesterday. We got wind of it just before the thing was published, and this is so it's very sly the way they've done it, and very lacking in transparency. If I sound slightly pissed off about it, it's because I believe in transparency and I believe in being upfront about things, but honestly, a lot of the funding for this defence investment plan appears to be built on sand, and it is about to become Andy Burnham's problem. Now, Andy Burnham is keeping his counsel. He's saying nothing about it, but you can bet your bottom dollar they will be furious about it. He's got a lot of things he wants to spend money on, and quite frankly, he's not going to be able to, because he's going to have to spend it on defence to meet these unfunded pledges.
Yeah, I have to say, you're not the only one. I felt a bit like I might have lost my temper a bit in that interview this morning, but partly because it just seems so incredible, and I mean that literally incredible, for somebody to come on and try and sell this plan in the way that they did this morning.
Well, we had Francis Tusa on, and I said, is this a fraudulent disgrace of a defence investment plan? And he said yes. I mean, I think there are people who are close to it who are appalled by it.
Steve, we should talk finally about Ed Miliband and, crucially, his older brother David Miliband. They had a huge falling out. Lots of people remember that back in the day. David Miliband went to work in New York, went to work abroad, doing sort of international aid stuff. But now there's talk about him coming back. What on earth is going on here?
So this is the return of the Cain and Abel of New Labour politics. So Ed Miliband, David Miliband. For listeners that don't remember, it was an extraordinary act of fratricide in which Ed Miliband killed off his brother's hopes of leading the Labour Party and did it all for himself, and then obviously they didn't win the next election. Very bad blood for many years. Their relationship has recovered somewhat. I'm told it's still not brilliant, but Ed Miliband has been suggesting to Andy Burnham that David has lots to offer, but that could ultimately create a problem for him, because if, and this is what the link is, David Miliband is being linked to the role of Foreign Secretary, and senior people in the Labour Party are making the very valid point, cabinet ministers, we cannot have more Milibands than women in great offices of state. You cannot have David Miliband and Ed Miliband both occupying great offices of state. So one of them will lose out from that. Now, we widely expect Ed Miliband to be the Chancellor, but some are putting a world in which, well, actually, wouldn't it be better to have David as Foreign Secretary, and in the ultimate act of revenge, his instalment as Foreign Secretary could deny Ed Miliband his dream of being Chancellor. Now, we'll see where we get to, but obviously it does feed into a wider issue about the role of, the lack of senior women at the moment in these plans, and I'm sure we'll get more detail on it. And as Andy Burnham says, he insists he definitely will address it and will balance it. But all things are possible at the moment, and a David Miliband comeback is very much on the cards.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. Steve, politics just continues to get more and more interesting. Thank you very much, as ever.
Thank you.
That is Steven Swinford there, the political editor of The Times.